Welcome very much, Timo Elliott, to our little makeshift studio here at the UK SOC 2013 conference. I think, first of all, just for our viewers, because we've got a bit of a mix today, tell me a little bit about yourself. Give us an introduction. Who is Timo Elliott?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Timo Elliott. I'm an innovation evangelist for SAP. 22 years with SAP, but most of that at BusinessObjects, acquired by SAP a few years ago. So my background is analytics, and I should just explain that term evangelist because it makes some people's eyebrows raise.
Exactly.
And it turns out, I actually looked at the history of the word, the evangelist was originally the money that you gave to somebody in ancient Greece for bringing good news. So it was a tip. A messenger arrived, they bring you good news, you'd give them a tip. The name slowly transferred to the messenger who brought you good news.
Okay.
And then several centuries later, it started being associated with religion and a certain type of good news. But I am an original evangelist. I am paid to bring good news, in my case around analytics and other forms of SAP innovation.
You know, that's probably the first time I've ever had the definition of a current day evangelist. Thank you very much for that. You'll see it a lot on the internet these days. So, with that in mind then, what brings you here to this year's user conference?
So I was doing a presentation, the keynote of the analytics track. So I was talking about the big trends in analytics and innovation.
Yes, excellent. So, if we look at these big trends then, of those three words are all very, very large concepts. So let's just look at the analytics market in a more of a general term than necessarily SAP specific. If we look ahead in the crystal ball and say 5 years down the line, what sort of analytics environments are we looking at? What is the world going to see at that point in time, would you say?
Well, there's been some massive changes in analytics. In the last 20 years, it's gone from being a very internal, focused activity designed mainly to support decision-making, greater efficiency inside the company. But more recently, data has really become the engine of growth and opportunities for companies. So data has started to be something that we actually sell. Every company out there now is trying to create consumer experiences. Nobody quite knows what that term really means, but it's about taking products and turning them into services and providing truly customized point-in-time experiences, and that relies very heavily on data. So analytics has gone from the back office to being something that the business people run. So that's created some changes to the culture, and of course there's obviously massive new opportunities because there's just so much more data available. So data is the new oil. Data is the new black. Data is the new bacon.
Well, if we're talking oil and talking big data, let's look at mining then. How do we mine that big data? How do we actually generate insight and value from that? What is SAP bringing to the market? What is essentially other vendors doing to actually generate actual insight using that big data volume, if you will?
So data, there's massively more data than ever before, and all of the traditional vendors have been investing heavily in all of the technologies you need to make sense of data. So we typically talk about maturity in analytics in 4 levels. So the first is descriptive, so that's the ability to do reporting, just find out what happened. And then I can't remember the next one, but then it goes off to descriptive, then you find out, well, why did it happen? Is the next level. The next level will be predictive. Can you predict what's going to happen? And the final level will be prescriptive. How can we make happen what we would like to happen? So those are the 4 different levels. And we generally believe that we're pretty good at the first 2. We can find out what happened, and we can find out roughly why it happened, but it's typically backwards looking. Everybody now is really in stage 3, this predictive area, so data mining. And in that area, we've come out with some fantastic new products. First, HANA, so you can run predictive algorithms in memory on all of your detailed operational data. It gives you some fantastic new opportunities. And then also we've been providing some new front-end user tools like SAP Predictive Analysis, which is a tool that integrates with your other data tools to collect information, build models, and use that to run your business better.
So looking at maybe some of these front-end experiences, because obviously HANA, as we will know, most of us in the SAP marketplace have heard of that woman many times by now. And I'm under the understanding that HANA in itself is just an enabler to process the data rather than an actual front end to experience that data. What is it that we're seeing on the front end in specific products in next year that you think is going to shape future analytics?
Specifically, when it comes to analytics, we've had a lot of investment in data discovery, data visualization. So a relatively new tool called SAP Lumira came out just a little bit over a year ago, and it's been through several iterations already. It's a fantastic tool that allows you to gather information from multiple sources, such as HANA, but also other data sources, BW or Oracle or flat files. Bring them together very quickly and easily, and then start doing fast, iterative analysis.
Okay.
So that's been a big focus, and it's a great tool. And you can actually download that at saplumira.com for free.
All right.
And use it against your personal data.
Free. Okay.
So you can actually test it out, give it a go. And we're running a competition called the Data Geek competition, where we're giving prizes to the people that just grab some data from their daily lives or anything else they're interested in, put it into Lumira, do some interesting analysis, write up a little blog on the SAP Community Network, SCN, and win a prize. It's a great competition. If anybody's interested in analyzing data, honestly, you should go to the site, because there's just some great examples of what you can do just taking data and looking for trends. You can find some fascinating things.
Would you recommend visiting that for both consultants and curious customers out there?
Absolutely. Anybody who's really just interested in data, they have like examples of football analysis, movies. There's one on superheroes.
All right. Interesting.
All the different, they're taking all the characteristics of superheroes and graft them all. It's
great. Very good, very good. So, talking customers maybe for a second then. If we look at, let's say your CIO character. Let's say that this guy is maybe not on the newest of the releases. He's maybe he's on EC6, maybe he is on that, but he's now trying to look ahead and see where am I going to put my investment to really gain value out of analytics. What steps and what would he need to do to potentially gain access to that really detailed analytics functionality that you can now offer?
Often, I have to say, it's not a problem of technology. It's more a problem of culture and creativity inside of organizations that is stopping people from getting the true value from analytics. So yes, technology can absolutely play a part, but even today, if you have any kind of data in any kind of format, we've got the tools that you can provide a front end to get it out. Lumira, for example. You can get started. What is really stopping people from getting the value is there's not enough people using data, and you're not necessarily using it in the best ways. So there's two things I would recommend. One is we're working with companies to look at ways of using analytics to generate new business. So for example, using some of that information to enhance the customer experience in real time. So you're actually using data to create profit. That helps change the culture. The other way is to try and get the mindset, the information culture internally. People systematically using information to make better decisions. Today the problem is what we call the hippo problem, where any decision is made by it's called the highest paid person's opinion, hippo. And it's what you get if you don't get analytics. It's like, well, we don't know what to do, so you choose, you're the highest paid. With analytics, you can do a better job of that. So what we actually recommend is ways of marketing the capabilities of information internally. And again, data visualization is a great way of doing this. Little things like finding a set of data that would be of broad interest, putting it on a big piece of paper, A0 poster size, making it nice and colorful, a nice graphic, and then sticking it on the walls around the organization. Even little things like that start getting people interested, say, oh, well, maybe I could get this information, and you start getting a virtuous cycle that people looking at information, asking for more information, improving the business, asking for more. So that's what we need to do.
So it can actually start, that interest and that growth can start from various levels in your organizations. It could be the managers, it could be your consultants doing the day-to-day. If someone starts showing the interest, there might be a chance to change the vision of where we're going.
Absolutely. I have to say, it's much easier if it's top-down.
Yes.
If tomorrow the CEO of your organization says, if I'm in a meeting and we need to make a decision and you're coming to me with your spreadsheet that you've made somewhere else, I'm not going to look at it.
Of course.
I'm only going to look at information that's reliable from my systems, that sends a very strong message. We actually rolled this out at SAP, especially on our sales side.
Okay.
So at the very top of the organization, people started doing their sales reviews, their pipeline, and they would come in and they'd do the sales review. How's the pipeline?
Yeah.
And they say, oh, you're doing great, and here are the big deals. And they literally had their iPad, their Business Objects Explorer, with all of the data for all of the deals from the CRM system. Yeah. And they say, well, you know, this has been slipping consistently. What's that? And then a few embarrassed meetings later with senior executives, they made sure that they came into the meetings with that same view. Yeah. And to understand it, they had to talk to their.
Okay.
So it really focused on the data.
It makes sense. Really data-driven in its truest sense, if you will.
And if you are inside an organization and the higher up people don't really get it, and you think you could do more with information, it's a little bit harder, but that is where you have to be marketing. Your job is to generate excitement around it. Yeah. And some of our very visual dashboarding tools, fantastic way to just pique interest.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good approach to try and awaken that little flame, if you will, of interest. So that's good. Now, the other thing I wanted to look at briefly was more on the size of an organization, because big data, I'd assume, we're talking big data volumes. Now, what if it's a small to medium-sized enterprise? Where does big data play in there, if at all?
So first, there's not necessarily exact correlation between big company and big data. Okay. So, for example, you can be a very small company. Some of the web companies are a great example. If you're an Instagram or a Snapchat, you have 15 people in your company, but you have a lot of data these days. Yeah. That's an extreme example. But you can absolutely be a small company and still have lots of information. The other is that big data is a very woolly concept, but the key thing that everybody agrees about big data, that is the least interesting aspect of it, is the big part. It's really a set of technologies. My favorite definition of big data is actually the ability to access data that was previously ignored because of technology limitations, which is a much broader definition. So it could include speed, it could include unstructured information,
historical records,
social data out there. And it actually turns out that, having worked with organizations of all sizes for many years, small and medium-sized organizations are actually much better at doing business intelligence than large organizations. Because two reasons. One, they don't tend to have the same kind of data complexity, so they can get their hands around it more easily. And second, there's less of a gap between the upper management and the people on the shop floor. So the span of control. So a good CIO can absolutely make massive difference in a smaller organization using analytics.
Interesting. Just so, towards the end, let me just ask around the way that you would approach it in a smaller business then, because we obviously got some more traditional SAP small SME-sized solutions like Business by Design, Business One, all of that. Is there a similar solution in big data, like an easy, light version that you would offer a smaller business rather than a bigger, chunky version?
There absolutely is. So we're running SAP HANA 1 in the Amazon cloud.
All right,
So to give you an example of how that's being used. So the Globe and Mail, it's a newspaper in Canada, #1 newspaper. Now it's not a tiny organization, but the project they were doing, they had some web data. They're trying to figure out how much they should charge for subscription digitally to their newspaper. Okay. Right. Every newspaper in the industry is trying to make money. They can't block everybody, because then they'd have no ad revenue and people wouldn't buy because they couldn't see the product. So they gathered all this web information and did a lot of analysis of that. They put it all into Hadoop in the Amazon cloud.
Oh yes.
So they were able to do the analysis, but it was very slow and batch-driven. And the business analysts kept asking new questions. They kept having to go to IT, back and forwards. So what the lady in charge of the project did is took some of that information and moved it to HANA 1. So it's a version of HANA that runs in the Amazon cloud. And what's nice about it is that it's like a light switch. When you leave the room, you can turn it off.
All right.
So it was exactly what the business people wanted. They were able to do iterative, very fast analysis without having to go back to IT. And they turned it off when they didn't use it. So 1 month, they spent just $100 Canadian.
Really?
On the solution. So when people come to me and say, HANA, no way, it's too expensive. Not necessarily.
Interesting. Okay, I think that's a quite good tip, because I think you're right. There's a general conception out there that it's a very expensive solution. So
And another example just of how people can make a difference in smaller organizations. Jonathan Rothman is a gentleman I met, and he worked for a small company that runs emergency medical departments for hospitals in the US.
Okay.
They had like 30, 40 doctors, I think, so smallish organization. And what he did is he actually sat down and he tracked the life of a patient going through their systems, every interaction that the patient has. So a little bit like design thinking at one level.
Definitely.
And then tracked how that correlated with the interaction with the different systems, and then went to the business people, in this case the doctors, and say, well, hey, this is what I think our business process looks like.
Yes.
With data. They said, no, you haven't got it right, and they corrected him, but it was enough to get their interest. And then they were able to do new analytics in areas that they'd never considered before.
Interesting.
And he made a massive difference to the organization. So for example, it turns out that the highest correlation in patient satisfaction is when a surgeon comes back after the surgery to say, hi, the surgery went well, and I wish you a speedy recovery. That 2 minutes was massively correlated with. Now, from a medical point of view, it's completely useless. But it makes a huge difference to customer satisfaction because it's more of a market in the US. You can choose your hospital. And also, it vastly reduced the number of lawsuits that they were exposed to. So a good example of a CIO looking at the business, learning about the business, asking, hey, is this how we could do analytics? Could this help? And ending up with a fantastic result for the organization.
So really going down to your core user and customer level and trace that in detail, what is the step-by-step that they go through, and then try and correlate that with whatever data volumes.
The key thing to realize is that for people who have more traditional IT background, this whole notion of, I'm going to ask you for some specifications. You're going to give me the specs, I'm going to build a system, then I'm going to give it to you, is completely inappropriate for analytics.
It makes sense, and I think it rings a bell as well with previous methodologies of delivering around agile and so forth versus your traditional waterfall, etc. But again,
what's really interesting around analytics is that it's designed to change in a way that few IT systems are. Most IT systems, you've built it and you might update it, but analytics is different. If you're still looking at the same report month after month, and nothing has changed, you're doing it wrong. You're supposed to look at the data, go, see something, change a business process because of it, and your analytics should therefore be changing. Analytics is like a bicycle. If it's not moving forward, it's falling over.
I like that. Okay, so towards the end here, let's look at just 2014.
Yes.
Quite close by now. Do you think, what is going to be the main messages that you think SAP is going to be pushing out in 2014? Do you, in the analytics space, of course, is there anything new coming up, or how are we?
We'll probably be telling people there's more data than ever before.
Because there is, right?
I've been saying that every year for the last 20 years. Why not next year too?
That's a good forecast, that is. Very good.
So the big theme that we've already unveiled, but we'll be pushing more next year, is something we call the network of truth, which we probably shouldn't call that because that scares people. They go, oh, that's just marketing. But it really is. Let me explain the concept.
Okay, go on.
We've gotten used to this notion of a single version of the truth. This is what people have been building towards in analytics. I'm getting all of my information in one place, one version of all of this data. But it turns out that doesn't work. What we really need, that's the Encyclopedia Britannica view of the world, right? The definitive volume of all human knowledge. Encyclopedia Britannica has obviously been completely eclipsed by Wikipedia. And what is Wikipedia? Well, it's a new technology platform, but what's key is because of that technology platform, you've got a lot more people who can contribute knowledge. It's not just a few experts anymore, it's everybody who can add anything. And plus, it's a lot faster and easier. So if you go to Wikipedia right now, you'll get detailed articles on something that was in the news yesterday, which you could obviously never do with Encyclopedia Britannica.
Of course.
So this is this notion of network of truth. We want to take all of the benefits of the single source of truth, the traditional data warehouse, but really make sure that if you're an individual or in a department, you can grab information on the fly, do analysis with it with that trusted information from the corporate data warehouse, and then very easily share it with others to create that common source of knowledge.
Well, I look forward to seeing that in effect, and look forward to see what you come up with in 2014, and obviously far ahead as well in the years to come. So I think that's it, really, Timo. I think I'm done for today. Thank you very much for attending this little session.
Thank you very much. I hope it showed that I am absolutely passionate about analytics. It's a fantastic area.
I think it comes across.
So if anybody's watching this and they haven't done much in analytics, you really should.
And obviously you can always follow him on Twitter.
Yes.
Just goes on about it.
Timo Elliott or at timoelliott.com blog.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.